I just want to apologise if the audio quality is a bit poor in today's video. So, the trailer for Barry Levinson's The Alto Knights, formerly known as Wise Guys, has finally dropped, starring Robert De Niro and Robert De Niro in this true-life gangster movie. Levinson, of course, in his heyday gave us movies like Rain Man and Bugsy, and Nicholas Pileggi, co-writer of Goodfellas and Casino, has penned the script. The movie follows two real-life legendary underworld figures, Vito Genovese and Frank Costello, both affiliated with the Luciano crime family. The family was run by Charles Luciano, who was sent to prison and appointed Vito Genovese as acting boss of the family in the 1930s. Genovese would flee to Italy to avoid persecution for murder, after which Frank Costello was appointed acting boss. After the witnesses to the murder charges were killed, Genovese returned in the 1940s, trying and failing to convince Luciano to let him run the whole family. How much of this the movie will depict remains to be seen, but this gives you a backdrop of the kind of tensions we may see between the two characters. The film seems to be concerned with the family in the 1950s, where tensions between the two men boiled over, leading Genovese to order a hit on Costello. Future mob boss Vincent the Chin Gigante wounded Costello but failed to kill him, but the event convinced Costello to retire and hand power over to Genovese. Now, before we talk about anything, before we discuss how good or bad the trailer is and how good we think the film will be, can we address the elephant in the room? And that is, as I mentioned months ago in previous videos, that Robert De Niro is actually playing both film roles, Genovese and Costello. Now don't get me wrong, seeing De Niro in another gangster movie, surely his last, is a huge bonus for mafia movie fans. And I would love to watch a movie where he plays Frank Costello. I'd love to see a movie where he plays Vito Genovese. But to play both of them at the same time is a gimmick, a stunt that I'm yet to be convinced by. I really don't see the point. Not the thinking nor the reasoning behind it. In fact, in a manner of speaking, it's a missed opportunity to get another big name old-timer from the Hollywood new wave to play against De Niro. Al Pacino, for instance, Joe Pesci even. What's Dustin Hoffman up to these days? Harvey Keitel is still working regularly. Armand Assante could be good as Genovese. If Robert Duvall wasn't 94 years old, I'd think he'd make a great Costello, and it would be a nice reunion for the duo after their 1981 crime drama True Confessions. De Niro as Costello even kinda looks and acts like Duvall. Getting another big name in the gangster genre would be a much bigger draw than seeing De Niro play two characters. The possibilities are endless, but for whatever reason, they've gone for De Niro in both roles, and the results, looking at the trailer, are strange. Now, of course, De Niro is perfectly capable of playing two very distinct, very different characters, even at his advanced age. His accent and mannerisms in The Irishman, for instance, are very different to, say, Killers of the Flower Moon. And yes, there is clearly a difference between the two men in the trailer. De Niro's got prosthetics or makeup on to give Genovese a distinct look from Costello, and the way they speak is different, but for me, from the little we see in the trailer, it isn't enough. Of course, the final movie might be more immersive, but I can't stop seeing De Niro talking to De Niro. The accents aren't distinct enough either. When De Niro is speaking off screen, I can't tell which character is supposed to be speaking. I mean, I'm sure we could get used to seeing De Niro in prosthetics as Genovese, but then the movie will show shots of Costello, and it's like the movie's reminding you that this is what De Niro kinda looks like in real life, and that breaks the immersion. I showed this trailer to my missus, who isn't familiar with the true story, and she assumed that the two characters were brothers played by De Niro. And for something like that, it would make sense. Tom Hardy in Legend, for example. But I'm still not convinced. Ideally, if you're that insistent on making the perplexing decision of having one actor play two titular characters who aren't blood relatives, you want to see the trailer and go, holy moly, I can't believe those two guys are the same actor. But instead it gives off vibes of those skits Eddie Murphy would do in his films where he played multiple characters for a laugh. They have to be really distinct for it to work, for us to be convinced and immersed into the film. But right now, I can't say that I'm buying it. I have heard that the two characters don't share that many scenes together. Now, on one hand, this makes the stunt casting seem even more pointless and redundant. On the other hand, perhaps it will be like watching a Genovese biopic starring Robert De Niro and a separate Frank Costello biopic starring Robert De Niro. I remember a big deal being made about The Irishman not casting younger guys for the flashbacks, that if Coppola had done that for The Godfather Part 2, De Niro wouldn't have gotten his breakout role, ironically. That issue is at least understandable to an extent in The Irishman, because he was playing a younger version of a character he played in the character's old age too, and Martin Scorsese really wanted to work with Robert De Niro, and he said it was pointless if they only have De Niro for half of the film. But here, it's two different people. Weird. Now, regarding the trailer, I need to preface the conversation by saying that with these kind of things, I tend to come off as a bit of a pessimist. I try not to get caught up in the hype. That being said, it does look like a decent trailer. The movie comes off looking a lot better than what many of us might have expected. There are red flags. It got moved from a late 2024 release to a March release, which doesn't bode well for what the studio might think of the movie. But it also has a $45 million budget, which isn't peanuts like a lot of modern day period gangster movies get, and there is a polished look to the film. It looks like it could be okay. Given where the likes of Levinson is in his career, I'm not going to get too hyped up, but hopefully it's a good film. Being a gangster movie fan in 2025 is tough. So many mob movies that come out are disappointing, and that's bearing in mind that there are hardly any mob movies out these days. But the cast, at least, has a few memorable names like Cosmo Jarvis, Catherine Narducci, Matt Savito, and Michael Rispoli, the latter two who the Sopranos fans will recognize. I mean, it's a new mob movie with De Niro, who is in his 80s. He could have retired years ago like Joe Pesci. He could have died years ago like James Gandolfini, who passed away in his 50s. So at this late stage, any gangster movie with De Niro is a bonus, I guess. So perhaps it's a case of don't overanalyze, don't go in with crazy expectations, just sit back and enjoy a rare modern mob movie with an actor who's not going to be with us for very long. And it does look like they're making an effort with this one, but some bits look weird. Like the attempted hit on Costello in the elevator. I hope it doesn't look like this in the final movie. Here it looks like De Niro was too frail to fall over, so they just used a lot of quick cuts and had him gently kneel against the wall. I can't quite escape a feeling that the movie looks a little cheap too, probably due to a lack of establishing shots in the trailer, with big crowds or shots of the scenery. I mean, with this part here, it doesn't look like a kind of quintessential gangster leaving a courtroom with a flood of reporters tripping over themselves to get a quote to snap a pic. It looks like they illegally filmed it behind someone's restaurant. The black and white archive pictures don't help either. What looks like the Anastasia hit looks a little hokey as well. I don't know, it just looks like they filmed it in a real modern day Barbers. There's some eye-raising marketing in the trailer too, from the hit makers behind Goodfellas, Bugsy and The Irishman. It sounds like bargain bin luring tactics. What does that even mean? What, because it's produced by Irwin Winkler, stars De Niro and was directed by Levinson? It's like the trailer is trying so hard to associate itself with Martin Scorsese without actually mentioning his name because he isn't involved. They should have just gone for from the writer of Goodfellas and Casino. I think an issue with many modern day gangster movies, especially biopics like Mobtown, Lansky or Gotti, is that they often don't realize that the best thing about these kind of movies is not the baseline visuals, it's not what the movie is about plot-wise. The Godfather borrowed from numerous real-life events, but it molded everything into an epic drama about the immigrant experience, the passing of the torch between father and son, holding on to tradition and culture, and other elements. With Goodfellas, other directors might have centered the entire film around the Lufthansa heist, but Martin Scorsese didn't even show it. There's hardly any plot in the film, because the point of it is to show us the allure of the mafia lifestyle and the ultimate paranoia and ugliness that this world ultimately has. Carlito's Way wasn't just a one last job movie. It dealt with themes of not being able to escape the life, trying to move on from your past, the way in which many ex-cons become trapped in that world. The point I'm making is that when gangster movies just depict events straight up, they're actually usually pretty boring, because we all already know the stories, they've been done to death. But when the real point of the movies is something deeper, then we're onto something. There has to be a theme, there has to be a point to the movie. Because believe it or not, watching greaseballs run around shoot each other isn't actually that interesting and has never been the best part of mob movies. Casino is another example, which has so many great elements to it, but would you believe it that the actual major theme of the movie is actually Paradise Lost, the story of Adam and Eve? The idea that De Niro, Pesci and Sharon Stone's characters had everything they could want, but it still wasn't enough and they still wanted more. They tasted from the forbidden fruits, like Pesci and Sharon Stone hooking up, and as a result they're punished and thrown out, and the casinos all come down in the end. There's a lot of religious symbolism in the movie, like this kind of ethereal lighting that always accompanies the major boss, Rimogaji. Maybe we can talk about that in another video. But that's kind of what I'm talking about. Maybe if Levinson's movie frames the story as two old friends who fall apart and end up enemies, where one decides to forego his relationship to raise his status in the underworld, where the other must make the heavy decision to leave the position he loves, highlighting the pain, suffering and sense of betrayal involved for all, we might walk away from the movie satisfied. It does look like there is an angle that the movie is trying to approach the story through. De Niro looks kinda young when he is shot and in the aftermath, and he looks a lot older in the early sit-down with De Niro. So maybe the shooting occurs early in the movie, maybe like 45 minutes in or something, and a bulk of the film's runtime is actually focused on the aftermath rather than the build-up. There's been loads of mob movies that De Niro has turned down, presumably because he wants to be challenged and doesn't do these kind of roles unless he's doing something different to what came before. I wonder if this is the reason why he's playing both roles, in that maybe he thought, I've already done these kind of roles, I could do them in my sleep, but he found the idea of playing both roles a challenge, so thought, hey, I want to try that. So what do you make of this trailer, and of De Niro playing two roles? Let me know in the comment section below, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.
Greatest actor you've ever worked with?
Myself.